I'm ready. I'll call the meeting to order. It's just a little after 7, and we do have a quorum. We have two people, two of our members absent tonight, but we do have the three of us who will carry on. So we have two sets of minutes to deal with tonight, March 29th and April 5th, and I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes of March 29th, 2022.
So moved, subject to modification.
And is there a second?
Second.
Page 1. And page 2, at the top of page 2, at the third line down, it talks about a communications tower to be built on property at 64 Creamery Road. It should be Old Creamery Road.
We could get really historical and call it West Oak Hill.
True. Hearing no other comments on those minutes, all those in favor of approving the minutes of March 29th, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there are no opponents, so we have taken care of that one. We'll move on to the minutes then of April 5th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved, subject to modification.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And page 1. And page 2. Hearing no corrections, all those in favor of approving the minutes of April 5th, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
I hear an aye. So we have approved both sets of minutes, and we can move on into, pardon me, public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to make any public comment, or anybody on the Zoom meeting that wishes to make any comment? Seeing no hands in the room raised. Anyone on Zoom?
Nope, no one in the virtual room either.
So we'll move on then to interviews and appointments. And we have two candidates tonight for the Social Service Organizations Funding Committee. And I believe that we have Camille George here, and we'll have Jessica Schwartz on Zoom, I believe.
Yep. Jessica, I'll get you connected right now.
And Camille, if you come up to the table, the microphone doesn't amplify, it just takes the sound for the cameras.
Hi, Jessica.
Can you hear us, Jessica?
Yes. Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. So you have both of your applications for the positions on the Social Service Organizations Funding Committee. So if you'd please just give us a brief summary of your credentials and why you'd like to be on the committee, and we'll start with Camille.
Hi, nice to meet you all. My name is Camille George. I'm a relatively new resident of Richmond. We moved here in September. However, I've been a resident of Chittenden County since I was about 5 years old. So I'm very familiar with Williston and the social service organizations that support Williston. I spent my whole professional career working in the human services field, primarily with older adults and individuals with a range of disabilities. I'm a UVM graduate in social work, and so I have a lot of experience, 30 years in state government, retired as the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Disabilities, Aging, and Independent Living. So I have a lot of familiarity with many of the social service organizations, as well as the budget development process and challenges that these organizations face. And as I'm moving into Williston and looking forward to figuring out how I might be able to contribute to the community, I thought that this would be a good match for my knowledge, skills, and experience. Happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Good, thank you. And Jessica?
Hi. So I moved to Williston 2 years ago. I lived in Winooski before that, and I am originally from New York. I also have a master's in social work from NYU, and I have been working at the Community Health Center in Burlington for the last 7.5 years. So I also know a lot of the organizations that that you guys are involved with, and have been wanting to get more involved with government and town and all of that. And so I thought, this looked like the perfect way to do that. So I have some knowledge in the area. I do not have background in the financial parts of things, but I definitely work with the underserved population regularly.
Good, thank you. And open the floor to questions from the board.
Well, Camille, I don't have a question as much as a comment. I was the recently left being the division chief for the Attorney General's Human Services Division, and dealt with Dale quite a bit. And that's a department that has incredible service that it provides, and it's hard.
It is.
So I just wanted to salute you for your 30 years there, and tell you that I know that some people think government jobs are easy, and perhaps some are, but not that one.
No. It's a great mission that the department has, and
Yeah. Yep.
enjoyed all 30 years.
Yeah. So anyway, but I don't have any questions for you.
Thank you.
Greta?
I don't have any questions either. As someone else who holds a master's in social work, I have great respect for what you both do. And have spent many years in the social services myself, and thank you both. And this is a way to get involved in the community that feels really good. Certainly. So I thank you both for volunteering for this.
So you both certainly have good qualifications, and one of the questions that's always asked of people, and usually it's done by one of the members who's not here, how would you recognize a conflict of interest, and what would you do if you found one? So I'll start with Jessica.
So a conflict of interest with one of the agencies, like financially in this situation. I would make it known that I felt that it was a conflict of interest, and say that I felt like I needed to step back if I didn't feel like I could handle it, or be not come in with a skewed point of view.
Thanks. And Camille?
I think conflict of interest is, it's not just the financial, but just any kind of potential relationship that you have with an organization or potentially a member of your family, or the appearance of a conflict of interest. And I think you do need to be aware and recognize that in yourself. And as Jessica said, withdraw from the conversation if it's an area where you feel like you have that kind of relationship where you might not be able to make objective decisions.
Good, thank you. I think we have no further questions, but so I'd be looking for a motion.
I'll move to appoint Camille George and Jessica Schwartz to the Social Service Organizations Funding Committee.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
Great people. Thank you.
Yes. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There are no opponents. So thank you very much for your offer to serve the community, and look forward to having you on the committee. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Jessica, I look forward to meeting you in person.
Yeah, same. Thank you.
We'll move on then to next item on the agenda. It's the draft Allen Brook Park Master Plan Revitalization Overview. I'll turn it over to Eric to introduce our guest tonight, Todd Goodwin, the Parks and Recreation Director, and members from the SE Group.
It's Derek. And so getting set up here, I'll give a brief introduction on this project, and talk over to Todd and our consulting guest here. Just 1 second. Oops. There, here's the change, Jessica. So the town staff, Recreation Parks Committee, and consultants from the SC Group have been working on drafting a revitalized master plan for Allen Brook Park. This is a project you may recall is in our FY22 capital budget. And this evening, the select board will receive an overview of the draft plan and vision for the park's development. This serves as the vision for the build out of the park to occur over many years. It essentially becomes a roadmap that can be updated along the way. And any financial decisions for building out the park would occur at a future time during capital budgeting in the years to come. So include decisions on the final scope for each potential phase and where the funding would come from. Developing this park would likely take many years to complete. And so this evening, staff is seeking questions and feedback from the select board on this draft master plan. And if it would like to task the committee with any additional work on the draft, then consideration to approve the plan would be on the future meeting agenda. And I thought I'd provide just some background information for the board and folks joining us this evening on where this park would continue to be built out on the former Mahan Farm parcel in the community. The town acquired this parcel in the year 2000 with some conditions. Its acquisition was the result of an agreement with Maple Tree Place Associates to donate 132 acres to the town of a condition of building Maple Tree Place. The town convened a task force to look at potential uses of the parcel back in 2004 and really looked at it in 3 different sections. The first section between ID9 and Route 2 has remained open land with agricultural uses occurring. The fire station was built on another section of this parcel between Route 2 and Allen Brook School. And then this section we'll be talking about this evening is 30 acres, the site for the park. The 1995 agreement stipulates this land shall remain as open space utilized for agricultural and recreational purposes, with a sizable portion remaining as parkland in its natural state and for passive recreation purposes. So back in 2011, an overall site plan for the build out of the park was developed. I printed out a hard copy for the board this evening at your seats so you could see kind of what was developed in the past here. Since then, 2 multi-purpose fields have been put in, used for lacrosse and soccer. A fence has been added at the south end of the fields. A section of the multi-use path reroute away from the school was completed in 2017. And Todd, our Recreation Parks Director, brought the proposal to update this plan forward for the capital budget the last couple of years. And its update was included in our current capital plan. So with that background, I'll turn over to Todd just to speak about the process that's been undertaken so far and the need to do this project.
Thank you. So as Eric had said, the prior plan was about 11 years old, and it was time for a revamp of that. Plus the map, the concept that was before was very sports heavy with a lot of sports fields and stuff. And we felt that we needed to develop another large community park like the Village Community Park that was a park for all, and even do more of that than we currently have, adding inclusiveness, equity, and all those other different things. One of the visions that I saw was we have the Village Park, which is kind of the older, has been around for many, many years, and Allen Brook is the opportunity to find that new wave, the stuff that is green, green roofs and all this different types of things. So bringing that into, we have like a 21st or beyond park, and we kind of have an older park within our community. The Recreation and Parks Committee acted as the steering committee of this, and we had 2 proposals, and they looked them over very thoroughly, and they voted on the SE Group, which was a local business in Burlington. And SE Group met with the committee about 4 or 5 times from beginning, middle, and end, keeping them informed, taking their inputs and such. We also met with the public twice, once in the beginning at the site and another time after the concepts. They presented 3 concepts at the first one, and people had a choice, had opportunity to say, I like this, I like that, and all this other types of things. And they went back and put it all together and presented it to the community again. Also did a survey, which, correct me if I'm wrong, we had like 300 plus results come back from the public on the survey, and SE Group said that was the largest response that they've ever seen in doing something. So we felt we had a lot of input from the public, both from all ends of the spectrum, and we're happy to have tonight Bo from SE Group to go over the vision that we have for Allen Brook Community Park.
Thank you, Todd. Just to introduce myself, my name is Bo Doucette. I'm a registered landscape architect with the SE Group in Burlington, Vermont. We've been working on this over the past year to try and bring a really resilient, let me know if, as I turn and present to this, my audio cuts out or anything like that. I'm happy to move this over a little bit. But we've been in the process of planning and designing a really vibrant and active, both active and passive recreation master plan for the Allen Brook Allen Brook Park. And through that, we started off by doing an analysis of the existing site, including the existing amenities, stormwater, what's going on there, vehicular, pedestrian circulation, as well as existing property lines and opportunities for possible land acquisition or land swap within the town. Through that, and through the public input, we have created the preferred concept that you have before you here today. This is really the culmination of 3 different designs that we have come up with along the way. So I'll just lead you through some of the key aspects of this park. One of the main things you'll notice is the divided access off of the prime Talcott Drive. This will separate the access between the Allen Brook School and the Allen Brook Community Park. That is to create a much more calmer and safe condition between vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic. As users come in through the street-lined drive, they will enter into a large parking lot filled with trees, active stormwater solutions, as well as pedestrian bridges across the stormwater leading into the more traditional side of the park, which includes all of the things that you'll see in a traditional urban or city park, such as splash pads, seat walls, shaded seating areas, bike racks, playgrounds for multiple different age groups, shade structures, and even an open event or flex lawn, where you can have things such as community movie screenings, band concerts, or even just an area for people to gather and meet up. And as we move away from that, one more thing to mention is the proposed multi-purpose building, which would be used as a restroom facility as well as all sorts of other park amenities on site. As we move away from that, we get into more of the active recreation, away from the core. So the closest to there is kind of the mid-ground between them, which is the court sports, which would be fenced in 2 courts of tennis, 4 pickleball, 1 basketball, and 1 flex hard surface. So that could be volleyball or any sort of other handball, any sort of other flexible surface. And we will be revitalizing one of the natural turf fields, providing a new synthetic turf field, as well as 3 new ball fields, a softball, little league, and a full-size baseball field. Another part of this is realigning the bike lane to circumvent the park and keeping the faster, more agile movement and recreation to the outside, while the pedestrian, it's a little bit of a slower pace, will be on the inside. We think that's a lot of a safer environment for all the users that will be using this park in the future, as well as some even slower pace passive recreation with grass, nature trails going through the existing meadow. Everything in that existing meadow essentially aligns with the original master plan from 2011. That will all be a natural area. That's on the uppermost part of the site. Through that, we've come up with a variety of different phases that we believe this could be phased into. All of this is designed to be a framework for the future and is by no means set in stone, particularly when it comes to phases and programming within the site. But the main core of the parking lot and the renovated natural grass turf field is essentially the footprint of the existing grass fields as they are today, with the exception of providing an adequate buffer for noise to the neighbors, as well as all the stormwater mitigation for on-site along the western property edge. As we move into the village, the park core, That's phase B1 and B2. Essentially the parkour and medium scale recreation, and then moving to the outsides, the synthetic turf field, phase C, and then the ball fields is phase D. With that, that is essentially the Allen Brook Community Park master plan in a nutshell.
I noticed in the, well, one of the things we're very concerned about is the cost of the project, and I was impressed that you give us some alternatives as far as what we might be able to do as far as cost. And this is a long-term type of effort as well, so, yeah. Questions from the board?
I can speak to that for just 1 second as well.
Yeah, sure.
The cost estimating is purely a preliminary effort. That's a full build out, absolutely ideal scenario. There is wiggle room in there for as far as materials, fits and finishes. This is more of a, what can we do to get the best possible product? No.
Sure. Questions?
The list of possible grants and such that were included in this, am I confusing things? Wasn't there something?
There is a list within the report of all possible grants, not all, but most of the possible grants that would be applicable to this project.
Yep. Yeah. Is there any estimate as to how feasible those grants are, like one more than the other, or
We
80%,
have,
say 80% of the people who apply get the grant, or something like that?
not that we could say at this particular moment. We did break it out into some of the most beneficial grants in there for you. So out of that list, if you look at that list, most all of those are ones that would definitely be worth chasing. And I believe that that would be a relatively high chance of getting.
Thanks.
I would just add on a funding level for the board, the town's collected recreation impact fees, which could also be used towards this project. So
Right.
It's a starting.
So this, in an ideal world, how quickly would we be putting this into operation?
Well, all depends on rec impact fees, bonding, grants, and everything like that. But total build out, within a 10-year period would be great. Because again, like the old map was 11 years old, things get old if they're just sitting on the shelf. But if we're moving towards that and updating things within, I would say a 10-year period is a good outlook to, and a park is never complete, but it would get us to what SE Group has visioned out here for us.
So the proposed phases, I mean, is this the recommended order to do things in, or this is just a breakdown of, you would do these things together at one time, or you see them happening chronologically?
It doesn't necessarily have to maintain chronological order. Certainly phase A would be probably the first one to do. That is access to the park, and that's kind of your prime hub from there to access the rest of the park and create a build out. But from there, it really is kind of up to public input and the process within the town as to which amenities they see fit to build first. A thing to note is that some features on this master plan, such as the ball fields and the synthetic turf, are possible revenue generators for the town, which can help fund additional pieces of the project or alternate projects within the town.
Originally, SE Group had the ball fields, baseball and the synthetic as phase 2, and then the or as Bo was saying, as phase 3. And I asked them to switch that because again, phase 1 is that infrastructure, getting people to the park. I saw the phase 2, which is currently providing park for everybody, whereas the ball fields was a specific group that would use them. But as Bo had said, we see that as a revenue generating if we can with the ball fields, bring in tournaments, you know, synthetic turf is a very big dream, but it would be great to have one because right now our lacrosse program hasn't been able to practice up at Allen Brook because there's been standing water there. Today is the first day that there's no standing water, but it's soggy still, you know, so to have something else that we can go to, but it would generate money for the future of the park for maintenance and upkeep and adding anything else we want. But the phase 2 was building something that everybody could use, so they see a benefit to money going to that and the park being developed and such.
Other questions? Don't think we have any more for you, but thank you. It's a great plan. Look forward to trying to work to achieve it.
Awesome. Well, thank you
This is
so much
great.
for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for the
you.
great questions.
Thanks.
Terry, I've got a hand raise online, Recreation and Parks Committee member, Cindy Provost. You want me to connect her?
Yeah, sure, like that, the way in, sure.
Hi, Cindy, I see your hand. I'm going to connect you right now. Hi, Cindy. Hey, Cindy, are you there? Let's see. You're on mute. I'm not hearing you on your audio, Cindy. I'm not sure if it's working here. Guess we're not having audio connection here. So.
We also have 3 members of our Recreation and Parks Committee sitting
I
behind me.
figured.
So I want to thank them and Cindy also for being here tonight and supporting the project. The whole committee has been great and a lot of input from a lot of different areas. People who have current families to families who have older kids and grown up, and so we had a good diverse group of on the committee looking at that and listening to the public and fighting for what the public wanted as well. So I personally want to thank them.
It's not a question for the speakers, but I guess for us, it's like, what's the next step here?
Well, we will eventually have to adopt a plan, is that right, Eric?
Yeah, this was informational for the board. Ask the board to consider action for this vision, and then that's kind of your roadmap. It's then we look at capital budgeting process to decide, okay, what's the first phase here? We've got some good preliminary number estimates, but I think before we do that, we come back to the board as a precursor to help narrow in on the scope, and then relates the financial piece that will really drive the timeline here, looking at the impact fees we have, deciding on a scope, and then for the board to decide how it wants to proceed at that point for phase 1.
Okay.
We'll also be bringing the plan in front of Planning and Zoning DRB for them to look at as well and stamp that, you know, this is a viable plan and moving forward on.
Yeah. And then once there's a roadmap and a direction on the first phase, we can proceed to permitting. I think Act 250 may get triggered with this as well, so we'd be down that road to get all those components in place.
So eventually, when we get to adopting a plan, we'll probably want to put some priorities in place at that point.
Yep.
Any comments from folks in the back of the room? All right. And we can't get the person on Zoom that,
Nope, it looks like Cindy put her hand down, so I think it was something going on with the audio maybe.
oh, okay. All right, well, thank you very much again, and we'll continue on the agenda.
Thank you all.
Are you taking
Next is, on the agenda is the National Kids to Parks Day proclamation. Eric, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yep, this is a proclamation that Todd had received, and it's a national effort by the National Parks Trust to really encourage kids and everyone to use a community's natural spaces and get out to the parks on a day later this month. I believe it's or next month. Todd, did you have anything else to add on?
This is something that the National Park Trust has done for a number of years. And this year, I wanted to have the proclamation, have you sign it, and we'll be doing a lot on social media to get the information out. But the future that I'd like to do is actually do some activities on these days, getting kids to the parks and families to the parks and stuff like that. So this is kind of the first step. You know, I'll come in front of you again next year and ask you to sign another proclamation, but I'll also be able to tell you we got all these great activities going on for that day and such as well. So just want to kind of put it out there in front of people and get them thinking about it. And, so we're going to do a lot of social media on encourage them to get out to the parks.
Good. Any questions for Todd? There is a suggested motion then.
Move to adopt the Kids to Park Day proclamation as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have 3 ayes, so that's taken care of. We'll move on then to the Parks donation policy, and Eric and Todd are going to talk about that.
Yep, I can lead off briefly and have Todd kind of walk this through for the board. So this policy has been developed by staff and members of the Recreation and Parks Committee. We currently don't have a policy mechanism in place for any donations for our parks. This is something Todd's led the effort to get established and how we would handle any donations that came in the future. I'll turn over to Todd to kind of walk through a little bit for the board tonight.
One part of this is memorial benches, and we've had a few of those. One in Village Park, and we actually had the opportunity to buy some benches for Brook, and we did so, and I put them out with a sign on them that said, you know, these benches are available for memorial plaques and donations, and we have 3 people that have come forward to do that. And we have 2 that have current plaques, and we're working on a 3rd. So that was one of the things that we didn't have any formal policy or procedures of how and what it looked like and all that, as well as Brook Park. I wanted to have something in place so that if we get donations for the park, that we had a policy and a procedure on how to do that. So this touches on, physical equipment. It even goes as far as money and land donations. It's covered the whole gamut. So I made it very broad, but it gives us something to work with in all types of donations that we receive. And this is strictly park donations. We also receive donations for programming and such. We have scholarship funds set up, but this one was specific to the park.
Well done. In my reading of it, any questions for Todd on the proposed policy?
I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse, Todd, but one of the things that just crossed my mind, I don't know if it's a concern or not, is the memorial plaques. Is there any, would it be prudent for the policy to have wording in it that the town has, I know it has final say anyway, but the town has final say over like the wording of the plaques, and for that matter, whether we would agree to one or not.
Right.
Because I mean, if worst case scenario, if some horrifically infamous criminal, if they want to, and I may that's a bad idea, but I mean, there's some infamous person and they want to put a plaque up. What do we do if the policy?
We under the second page, park donations.
Yeah.
Down towards the bottom, pre-approved texts. The department must approve all texts for memorial plaques and suggested texts in honor and memory and celebration dedicated to, and somebody has to present to us, and we say it's a certain size. It's also here. It's written how many lines, and even to where the drill holes need to go so that it'll fit onto the benches. But they have to present that to us, and we okay that before they get the plaque made. And then when the plaque comes to us, it needs to match And if there's any changes, we wouldn't. So it's not that specific, but the department must approve all text for memorial plaques.
Yep.
Is in there. Were you looking for more?
Well, it's what I'm concerned about is, that somebody says, well, this is in honor of, Joseph Stalin or something. It doesn't say that we can reject it. It just says we can approve the text. And if the text is like, in loving memory of some person that doesn't, is anathema to the town's values, or that we'd end up with some weird lawsuit.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, and I totally agree. We don't need to work it out right now,
Yeah.
but do you have some could I lean back on you on some specific wording that we could throw in there that would cover us on that?
Not right now.
No.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
I
I just don't want to go back and create something and then
No, I
still
agree.
not be.
Yeah.
But maybe it's something we can look at.
Yep. And the problem with these things is if it gets too much, like, well, I want to put up a plaque to, when these people pass away, asking for anybody to pass away, but, with the partisanship that we have right now, I want to put up a plaque in honor of Hillary Clinton. Well, I want to put one up in honor of Donald Trump. Well, I want to put one up in honor of somebody.
Right.
What I'm concerned about is if the language isn't tight enough, that suddenly we'll be, in some sort of partisan warfare in court. And on the other hand, if it's too loose, then, it's not worth the words anyway. But
And who am I to judge
Yeah.
whether something should or shouldn't?
Yeah.
No, I agree. It's
And
We
the
can
odds of
look
this
at-
happening are really, really tiny. So this is probably a waste of time. But it did cross my mind.
no, that's a very good suggestion.
I'd be happy to think about it, but maybe the town attorney could be consulted.
Yeah, we can chat, Todd, and reach out to the town attorney.
Okay. Yeah.
Get some draft.
Yeah. I definitely would want, we can do the town attorney, but I would definitely want your input.
Yeah.
And make sure that it's saying what you're feeling.
Sure. Okay. Well,
This will be coming back to us sometime, hopefully in the near future, for final approval, so, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be our plan. We'd work that in and anything else the board's looking for a minute.
Any other questions or comments?
So in looking at, and thinking about the park, Allen Brook coming up and so forth, will folks be able to designate donations for specific, things, if someone wanted to designate, their donation is specific to Allen Brook Park or to, whatever other specific park kind of related thing, is that an option for folks or within this?
Yeah, when they're given a donation, if they want to earmark it for something specific, somebody who walks always at the Village Community Park, because there's that gray loop,
Right.
and they've never experienced any other park, we want to give that money there, they would say that to us when they're doing that. And that question is asked too, is are you looking just for general or whatever else? One of the benches that we did, a gentleman walked, his wife passed away and wanted to do a bench. And so it's at Village Community Park. The other benches are at Allen Brook because we purchased those benches for there, and that's where I had put it. And two people came up, and one is to moms and one is to dads. So it's not to a specific person, but it's, I think because of everything that's happened through COVID and stuff, these people reached out and were thanking moms, and another one was thanking dads for their, all that they do, sort of a thing. So, but yeah, they could definitely earmark where they wanted it to go.
Okay. And so I don't want to make more work for you. I mean, that may be something else that would want to be added to the language to within this, but that is, yeah.
Other comments or questions? All right. Moving on to Recreation and Parks Committee charge amendments. And, again, Todd, you're up on.
Yep.
this one as well.
So at first, the charge was just changing some language. Williston Community Park was changed to Village Community Park. And Brennan and Rosno were both added community parks to them. And that's something I've done over this last year, is make the 4 parks that I'm responsible for community parks, because we have country parks. So and they're not really neighborhood, 2 of them are close, Rosno and Brennan are close to neighborhoods, but it also reaches out amongst multiple neighborhoods. Village and Allen Brook will be 2 of the largest in Williston, and they're 2 of the smallest, but adding that wording of community. I then brought it to the Recreation Parks Committee and just asked them, it was, again, a kind of an old document, and I said I was making these changes. Was there anything else that they wanted? And under number 4, the charge, under 4.7, they felt that the recreation plan, the word capital budget is something that I proposed. I share with them every year before sharing it with you, and get their input and let them know. So they felt capital budget was more of what they were actually hearing and doing. And then 4.8, informally advising the hiring of the department director. And we're actually going to be doing interviews on Thursday for a program coordinator, which will double the size of the Recreation and Parks Department. And the committee felt that since we were growing, it would be better to say department personnel. And actually, Danielle is here tonight. She's one of the people that will be on the interview committee this Thursday. So they play a role in that. And then the other thing that they wanted to add was just kind of a disclaimer of 4.11, other tasks or duties deemed necessary by the select board, town manager, or recreation director to assist the department. And that just left it more open that we can ask them to help us with anything. And one of the examples is, instead of going out and creating a whole task force to work on this park, we already had the task force in the Recreation and Park Committee. We had a wide diversity of people and talents and stuff like that. And as I said earlier, they did an excellent job with that. So there was just more things that we're asking them to do and involving them. So they wanted to do that. So those are a few of the wording changes, but a few of the updates that they felt was important for their charge.
Questions or comments? It looks pretty simple, so, and not too much to take in, so if there's no questions or comments, then I'd be looking for a motion.
Move to amend the Recreation and Parks Committee charge as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion on the motion, then all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
There are no opponents to it either, so we have done this one. I think we're done with you, Todd. Thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Moving on to lease agreement for the Catamount Community Forest Hayne project. Eric, you want to speak to that?
Yep, this is a lease. It's up for renewal after 3 years. It's to contract with Harold DeGraff to do haying at Catamount Community Forest, some meadowland there, about 35 acres. He's done the work for us for about 3 years. The only real change in this lease agreement has been reviewed by the Catamount Community Forest Committee and staff. They recommend continuing with Mr. DeGraff to perform this work for another 3 years. You'll see a new section. It's now section 6 would allow Mr. DeGraff to use a rock crushing device attached to his tractor to pulverize small rock outcroppings in the field. This was a need identified for part of the work. You get to have pulverized in a lease agreement very often. It's funny.
It's a good word.
So that, and then just number 12, just restricted mowing on Field C between May 20th and August 1st. That's an adjustment from June 1st and August 15th, I believe, before it. So those are recommendations from the committee, and Mr. DeGrasse reviewed this lease agreement, and he's agreed to it pending the select board's approval.
There's a particular bird, and I can't remember the name of, that nests, and so that's why the mowing is restricted on particular days.
Yeah.
They nest in the grass.
That was gonna be my question, so there you go.
Any questions or comments regarding the proposed lease? If not, then there's a motion suggested.
I'll move to authorize the town manager to enter into a lease agreement with Harold DeGraff for haying at the Catamount Community Forest.
Sick.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
We've taken care of that. We're up to the ARPA designation and lost revenue funds, something that we discussed in the past, and we're looking for a motion. And Shirley, I think you're going to speak to this.
Overview. So when the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery fund part of ARPA was passed, when the final rule from the IRS came out, they allowed us to take a 10 million exemption or your award up to $10 million. So we've talked about that before, and in our planning, we have talked about using the allowance, taking that allowance. Our total award will be $3,013,834.04. Thank you. By electing this allowance, it just gives the town the most flexibility with the funds, and as long as we use it all for government services. So even though the forced reporting deadline is in a couple days, I already have filed, to be clear, but Eric and I communicated with Terry, and Eric has communicated with the board to get approval to go ahead and take the allowance. So it has been done. The report has been filed. We took the standard allowance, and we didn't have any ARPA funds to report as being spent. I was listening to a webinar from the league, and they just recommended best practice was to have the board approve a motion making this election. So that's what we are asking you to do tonight. Any questions?
Questions, comments?
No.
You know ARPA probably as well as I do by now.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for a motion.
I'll move that the town of Williston make the one-time irrevocable decision to elect the standard allowance approach for our ARPA award in the amount of $3,013,844.04 to spend on the provision of government services throughout the period of performance of the grant.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have 3 ayes on this one as well, so we're up to the manager's report.
And sorry, Shirley, I should ask you to stay right there.
I know I should have.
Well, Shirley has the February finance report. Board.
Yes.
More steps are always better. So as usual, I just have highlighted the things that are, I try to highlight the more significant changes, but at this point in the year, we don't really have a lot of those. But so the clerk revenue is at 61% of budget compared to, if you take the portion of the fiscal year that's passed, it's about 67%. The town clerk is at 61%. The recording budget is 175. They have actual revenue of $96,528, or only 55% of the budget. So that's what's bringing that 60, that their overall year-to-date variance down a little bit from what we would expect. But recording, as the market picks up and the sales pick up, that number will see more activity in the next couple of months. But we also do have a very limited housing market, so there is a chance we may not make that $175,000 budget this year. Passport revenue, although not big, we only had a $5,000 budget, but we have $15,000 in passport revenue. So that is way over the budget. And it has continued to be busy downstairs with people making appointments for passports. So every bit helps. Public safety revenue. Again, not a large number, but most of the variance is coming from the police department. There have been a lot of places that haven't been doing fingerprinting, and our PD opened up months ago and started fingerprinting. So that volume is showing up in their numbers. They have $9,500 with a $2,000 budget, and they continue to be busy with that service, as well as false alarm fees, a budget of $20,000, and they already are at revenue of approximately $15,500. So they're smaller items, but they've been busy. Let's see. Planning and zoning, sorry, and I'm switching to expenses now from revenue. Planning and zoning is only at 56% of their budgeted expenses year to date, and the biggest reason for that is they have $30,000 in miscellaneous planning studies, of which nothing has been spent year to date, but there will be a payment or two to the CCRPC for some work that they are doing. Library expenses are at 59% of budget. The biggest reason for that is the $25,000 that we pay to the school annually for the rental of the land that the building sits on. I will probably reach out to the school because last year they didn't remember to actually bill us, and they haven't yet either. But I also don't want a $50,000 bill next year. So, and the other thing is their book budget is $85,000. They've spent 57% year to date, but they will no doubt spend that over at the next couple of months. So those are really timing issues things, and we expect them to come close to budget. So the next item is a little funky and gets into accounting issues, and I don't want to make it confusing, but if you look at the transfer to the capital budget line, it's 174%. So let me just, it is, if you're looking at the general fund financial, it's the fourth item from the bottom, and it says transfer to capital budget. The budget is $443,000, but the actuals are $773,000 rounded up. And you say, okay, why did we spend so much money for budget? But we haven't. So for capital asset recording, we take the amount that was approved for capital projects, and we put that in a separate fund, and we move the cash there so we can account for that separately. And then we have an equipment fund for all of the equipment. So the equipment fund, the cash has been moved, all the expenses stay in that fund, and it's worked that way for years. But the capital project fund hasn't. The money's been approved by the board, but just never moved out of the general fund. So this was a catch-up year, so I could get those accounts cleaned up and the balances of cash in the fund equal to the amount of the expenses that have been approved by the board. So some of this is a little catch-up, but so 200 and let's see, the fire department, if you remember, that is capital project. So I moved that cash to the capital project fund for the fire department roof replacement. But most of that money came from savings from debt that we weren't going to incur because of timing of debt issues. We also have, to date right now, I'm just going to say $234,600 that we've transferred for Muddy Brook, a little less than you originally approved for us to take out of fund balance, but we still will have a final invoice coming. Bruce told me, I think it was last week, they had the final walkthrough, but they have to still put on the sidewalk. So we'll get another bill. It may not be in this year, but we will get another bill for the rest of that project. So that's still to come. And then we actually used to have 2 capital project funds, and I can't really tell you why, but anyways, I cleaned one of them out and it had a balance of like $30,700. So all I did was move that money back into the general fund, and that's just the accounting that's happening to make the entries that I have to post through because I'm moving cash, and then I need to sweep it through what I call the P&L. So that's the effect of that. Let's see, now I'm going to go to water. Any questions on that? Okay. So water, sewer, and stormwater highlights. Water hook-on fees and sewer hook-on fees, they are both at 89 and 82% of the budget. And that is Northridge for both of those, Riley for both of those. And then for water, we also had Hercules Real Estate that had some additional water hook-on fees. So there's some smaller ones as well, but those are the big projects that are accounting for most of the balances and why they're so high versus, sort of 67% of the year. The stormwater project labor cost has a budget of 45,000 and only 18,000 spent year to date. So there was a grant and aid, actually have a couple grant and aids, one from 21 and 22, and then we have a Better Back Roads grant. But some of that work, the labor, we were able to charge to one of the grant and aid projects, so it moved to the grant instead. Stormwater outside services at 37% of budget, but we have 13,000 that is designated for the Blue Williston program. That hasn't had any expense year to date, and I will follow up with Christine to see if she's continuing to advertise that. I have to say I haven't seen it in the Observer, but whether we might not have any expense for that this year. And then stormwater maintenance operations at 50% of budget. And again, that's for highway personnel who do projects for the stormwater. We do an entry to move those wages and equipment use to the stormwater fund. And so far, we only have 2 quarters in there. Highway has just been a little behind getting me reports. So there's 2 quarters right now, and we'll have March coming up soon. But it all depends on what they have for projects and what time the highway department has to work on those projects. So, and that is it for me.
Good, thank you. Any questions for Shirley on anything? Just one correction
Yep.
that appears on, you're talking about the state of Vermont buildings and grounds. They're very defensive about this. It's Buildings and General Services Department.
Carrie, where was that?
Thank you. Good.
You're
overview.
welcome.
And the board will be receiving the enterprise fund budgets to consider at the May 17th select board meeting. So staff is finishing those up right now, and the board will get those in the next few weeks in anticipation of that meeting coming up. So a few items I'll touch on this evening from my written report. And well, it's not in my report, but I sent the board an email late this afternoon. The form-based code transmittal is coming up for May. The planning department's put together a comprehensive overview, and the binders before you this evening. There's a lot of backup information there from the process as well. I've met with Terry and Matt to work on what the review process would look like for the board, as this is quite the public policy undertaking to be going through here the next couple of months for the board. So we've planned the May 3rd and the May 17th meeting to each have time allotted for the planning staff to walk through the proposal, to really give the board a good baseline of what the proposal is as it considers what direction it wants to move in this policy. And then we talked about setting some time aside at the June 7th meeting for general public comments and any comments from the development community at that point, and then for the board to decide any next steps it wants to take at that stage of the review. And there's no set timeline or deadline. It's the board's purview how it wants to go through this process. So I just want to thank the planning department. They've done a tremendous amount of work on this the last couple of years. And the materials they put together are very comprehensive for the board on a policy item here that has a lot of far reach for the town for many years to come, and a lot of components to it. Like any development bylaw, direction the town wants to move in as a starting point, and can be amended as we go as well. So it's something to keep in mind as this process kicks off here. So that'll be coming up in May. Pleased to announce, I'm sure it's with the board, but for the community to know, we've hired all 9 new members of our fire staff. We had a great group. We started a couple weeks ago in our recruit academy. That'll be going on until mid-June or so, and at that time we'll have those members join the department on the 24-hour shift, and we'll increase our shift size from 4 to 7 at that point. So it's a lot of great work by the department to make this a reality on the personnel side this last couple of months. So that's ongoing.
Did I see a banner on Channel 3's morning news about there's a job fair, and I thought I saw a banner about Williston in the background.
I know our department intended to try to find folks that will want to join our call staff.
Okay.
Moving ahead,
Yeah.
for the
Great.
cheapest. I think we brought maybe the ladder truck over too to show folks some of the apparatus. So I'll have to hear how that went today from the chief. Then I'm also really pleased to report that we've hired 2 new members for our police department. Both are fully certified officers, and we plan for them to join our department here in a couple of weeks in early May. We'll be fully staffed on paper. We've got 2 officers in the police academy, and which should wrap up. Dates change a little bit. It's either June or early July now, and we'll hope to have a functional full staff here by the end of the summer. So that's all good news on public safety fronts here. And then also another hiring good news to share that Melinda Scott, our current conservation planner, has accepted the role of energy and community development planner. A new position the board approved in the budget. So I'm really pleased that Melinda will be stepping into this role. She's been in the department for 7 years, led a number of comprehensive projects, and including the acquisition efforts for the Catamount community forest. We'll be working to fill her former position, the conservation planner, and in the interim period right now, she'll be working to fulfill duties of both positions and continue to staff the energy committee, and hopefully we'll have that department fully staffed with all 5 positions by early summer. So that's a lot of good staffing news to pass on this evening for everyone.
I would just add to that, I just think it's a wonderful opportunity when we can promote someone within, because we're such a small organization, so.
Yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And then an update on the diversity, equity, and inclusion work from staff. Been meeting with an internal group, Crystal Lee and Brenna from the CJC and Aaron Dickinson in the manager's office, to plan the structure of our community engagement, to discuss the visual representation of town values with a particular focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion that we board discussed back in March. We've had a couple good meetings and working through how to structure the engagement, and identified 2 steps for just look for the board's consensus on this approach this evening. The first would be establishing a town value statement around DEI. Then the second, discussing how to visually represent that value statement. We felt having the value statement as the first step would be really critical, and then working to find a visual representation for that value statement. And we're seeing that the town currently doesn't have one of those important statements in place. To develop the value statement, we propose to have the CJC engage the community in creating this draft statement, and then present that draft statement to the board for consideration. And then engagement around the visual representation of the statement would then follow. We continue our planning work towards that. Given kind of this 2-step approach, we've been thinking about our proposal is to plan to deliver a report in early fall instead of early summer as originally planned. Still intend for Black Lives Matter flag to remain flying as the board discussed in March. And I think we just probably need a little more time to get the statement crafted, have summertime when it's not as easy to engage folks with time off and away, and then look to get that back to the board in early fall. So proposals to the board this evening, if that's the direction you'd like staff to continue.
So it's looking for an agreement or comments regarding the proposal that Eric has outlined.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, that's a good process, and I think it's critical definitely to get folks to be involved in this process. So
So like we have
That's good, we'll continue.
consensus, go ahead.
yeah,
Good.
Then I'm almost at the end here. Green Up Day is coming up on May 7th, and staff is working to pilot a new engagement for the community on Green Up Day. We're calling it a town fair, but there won't be rides or cotton candy or anything like that. But we've got a number of town departments and committees who are going to be staffing tables. We've got a tent in case there's inclement weather on the green. I think the Historical Society is going to open up the old schoolhouse that day. We'll have some library story time and really a chance for folks to get green up bags. I think I'll be handing those out in the morning and then have folks come back and after they green up, chance to chat with staff and committees. Folks in the Red Cross will be there as well to promote the Sound the Alarm event coming up in May. A couple other things, and we're trying to contain it because it's new and trying to pilot it. So hopefully a lot of folks will come out and we can see if this is something we might want to build on in years to come. So we've got that coming up, and welcome the board to stop by and if you want to hand out green up bags too, or just let me know. So we'll be there around 8 o'clock in the morning, and we have secured some coffee. That will be And then finally, this is many years in the making, but the Exit 12 Park and Ride is getting under construction.
Yes.
It's I'm told construction's beginning with an access road and some clearing, and it's planned to wrap up by the end of 2023. I don't know the timeline of the state police barracks, but I know that should likely be beginning sometime in the near future. And also a new sidewalk connection from Hurricane Lane down to Longhorn Steakhouse area where the sidewalk ends right now under the highway. So both of those are going on this year, so a lot of great project work a long time.
I never thought that would actually be built. They would come in every year and say it's on our shelf, it's on our something. I mean that goes back so far that at one point I recall they were talking about a possible site for it being behind the former Skateland building. And Skateland hasn't been around for 20 years. So anyway, but that's great.
Yes.
The sidewalk, I think, is particularly, I mean, the park and ride is wonderful, but the sidewalk, I see a lot of folks walking. And I know it's caused a lot of me a lot of personal stress seeing them walk, on that's tiny little stretch there. So I think, for our community, just in the walkability and the access, that's huge. So.
Yeah, I'll get updates from V-Trans periodically, and I'll share them with the board, but I'm sure folks will see some construction work and some traffic going on there as these projects take place coming up. So the start of construction season's upon us here.
Yes.
That's all I have this evening.
Good, thank you. I think the state police barracks is coming right along too. They're been through the Act 250 process, and their money is in the capital bill for the second year, so it should be breaking ground on that before too long as well. So it's good, and they'll be selling the other building, and so see what wants to go in there. Well, thanks, Eric. Is there any other business to bring forward tonight? If not, going once, we're adjourned. Thank you.